Hello my dear children, you are welcome back to Guru Gedara educational program, and so far we have done several lessons on appreciation of English literary texts. Today I am going to discuss another interesting lesson. It is based on a very interesting speech made by one of the popular persons in Sri Lanka. Okay children, can you guess what it is? Alright, let's move on to the first slide and see. You know this person and he is very popular, and you all are very much interested in watching how he plays, and this is a popular speech he made, and it is known as Colin Cowdrey's lecture. The topic is the Lahore attack, and the speech was made by Kumar Sangakkara. So this is a very important speech in many ways, and can you think why is it considered as an important speech, and what does it tell us, right? So I have quoted one of his lines to begin with, and it is, "I was never in the wrong place at the wrong time." So when we look at these words, attack, and it is somewhere away from Sri Lanka, and it is known as Lahore attack. So with these words you can guess where could it have happened, right? So first of all we get an impression that they have met with a very unpleasant experience, because they are alive and he is alive. Especially we know that that attack has not caused any harm to any of their lives, but we can understand that why he made this speech and why is it considered a very important one. And his quote, "I was never in the wrong place at the wrong time." So that suggests a lot of things. So one thing is he was a lucky man throughout the period, and actually where was he lucky, in Sri Lanka or in Lahore? Yes, in both places, right? Because they could save their lives in that attack, and at the same time it suggests that though there were some kind of violence and destruction, fortunately he had never been in any of those places. So what is he going to say is very important for us, and let's see what's there in the next slide. How did the speaker begin speech? So I'm going to pay your attention to that question. How did the speaker begin speech? So if you have already read the content or the text in your book, you might have got a clear idea, or you might have understood the answer for my question. How did the speaker begin his speech? Because he talks about the prevailing condition of that period in Sri Lanka, and when we read it we understand it is not a pleasant thing at all, right? So kind of violence, war, and bombs and gunfire and everything, right? So let's see what he is going to say about all this. "I was fortunate that during my life I never experienced violence in Sri Lanka firsthand." The word firsthand is very important in this line, because that is to say that he had never met with such an event. On the other hand, it suggests that there had been violence all over the country, and especially away from Colombo, because the next line on my slide shows that in Colombo, apart from occasional bombs, life was relatively normal. That means people lived in Colombo could have gone on with their day-to-day life, but it was disturbed by some occasional bomb blasts. So I think all of you might have not been very familiar with this situation in Sri Lanka, because your generation could not have experienced that, and actually in a way you all are fortunate, but the some background knowledge about this is important to know what happened in Sri Lanka, right? So I think when you do the poem, The Big Match also speaks a kind of violence and about war. And here I'm not going to talk about that war and violence very much, because he is referring to that when he faced that attack in Lahore, and there he says he felt how much terrible it was for the people who were in war-torn areas, because Colombo, of course, had high security measures in a way, and at the same time there were a lot of checkpoints, and the terrorists were not able to come and disturb the day-to-day life of people in Colombo. But of course, we were all terrified. At any moment there will be a kind of violence and attack. That is why he says, I was never in the wrong place in the wrong time, right? So physically detached from war means Colombo people, of course, had not often heard how these attacks and the sounds of guns and the violence of war. Okay, children, did you understand how life was in Colombo? People were not very much disturbed, and they had a kind of peaceful life, but everybody was terrified. At any moment there will be an attack or a kind of violence, a bomb blast or some kind of gunfire and killing people, right? So therefore he says the situation in Colombo was felt like physically detached from the war. So that suggests us people did not actually involve in war, right? But you might have heard, and I will tell you, some people in certain areas were very frightened of life actually, and at night they could not sleep at home. They had to go away from home and hide in the forests because their life was disturbed so much with the violence of war. That is why he says people in Colombo were physically detached from the war, that kind of violence. I hope you got the meaning that he wanted to say. People went to work and I played my cricket. That's very important. People went to work. It suggests people had their ordinary way of life. Children went to school, mothers and fathers and all the other adults went to their work. At the same time, what did Kumar Sangakkara do? He played his cricket. He says, I played my cricket. The word my is very much meaningful because it shows it is possessive and it is in his body, my cricket, right? So you can see that picture of him playing in the ground, right? So that is why he says, I played my cricket. He was not disturbed that much because of the war. So why do you think he brings out all this information? Because remember those two words, Lahore attack. It was the time, or it was the day that they really experienced what a terrified thing it is to face such a violence, right? So let's see what's there, the next slide. How was the life for other people in other parts of the country? So that's what I was explaining you earlier, how much terrified the people were, and they could not sleep at home tonight, of course. They had to go out. Those things I explained you, and so their life was totally disturbed. They could not enjoy their lives, right? So people were putting their lives in harm's way every day. So what kind of harm? One thing is they are frightened of the attacks. Other thing is the people or the defense services had to put their lives in that to protect the country and the people, right? So that is why he says people were putting their lives in harm's way every day. That is a daily course, not for a day or two. It was a continuous thing all throughout the time. unlimited of time, whether it is morning, daytime or night, right? So some of course were putting their lives in harm for the defense for their motherland. That's what I was telling you. All the armed forces and the police were on their duty to protect the people in the country. That is why he says defense for the motherland. Trying to survive the geographical circumstances that made them inhabit in war zone. So you get the word war zone. You understand that an area where there is war. Of course, people were not going to those areas where there is war, but they had been living there, and the outbreak of war made their lives so miserable, and they had to be in those areas, and they could not move away from them due to certain situations and the prevailing condition, and they didn't want to leave their lands and come, right? So the next one, for them, avoiding bullets, shells, mines, and grenades were imperative for survival. Again, some other important words, survival, to live without getting harmed, survival, right? So when there's flood, we have to survive. When there's drought, we have to survive. Now what we have got, this corona pandemic. So all of us are trying to survive ourselves, fighting against this coronavirus and try to survive. I think you understood the meaning of survival. So what was the survival from? The bullets, shells, mines and grenades. So all of you get a very unpleasant experience or unpleasant idea when you hear these words. Bullets, of course, bringing death. Shells is the same, and mines and grenades. You know that many of the soldiers caught up in these mines and grenades were injured, and they lost their legs, arms and parts of the body, and they are suffering. So that is why he told that defense for their motherland. Some of course they were putting their lives in harm, and the other people of course living in those areas, right? So the things that caused harm were bullets, shells, mines and grenades. Fine. You got the idea? The violence and all these things were mentioned here, and he says that it was not his first-hand experience anyway, right? Till that day, fateful day arrived. Without an experience, it was something that he could not relate or draw parallels. You know that. You can't talk much about something that you don't know. You don't have any experience to talk about something, and then you find it very difficult to say exactly what it is, right? So until the day they were attacked by terrorists. You hear the word for the first time, terrorist, in the lines of his speech, but of course I use the word, I think, for several times, right? So it was a very fateful day for them, the third day of a test match. When was it? In 2009, a long ago or some years back, right? They had toured in Pakistan, and very special thing is there in the next line. Read it and see. Had been asked to leave early without waiting for the Pakistan bus. So we understand that Pakistan bus is going to be something that is going to be a kind of terrible situation for them. But could they avoid it? Could they skip that bus? They had to face that event or that unfortunate situation, right? So had been asked to leave early without waiting for the Pakistan bus. Kumar Sangakkar, who faced that fateful event or very miserable incident or very unfortunate incident, tells this, nobody else. So it is again first-hand information. They were informed not to wait for that bus, but some kind of misfortune had let them get into that bus. And you will understand how they made these people suffer on the bus, right? We were anticipating a hard toil day for the bowlers because of the match, and they were of course very much concerned about the match and its score. They might have not been able to do what they were asked to do, right? So it is something that you have to think of, how these people had planned to put these lives in trouble, or our team. What evidence is there to show that it is going to be a bad day for them? So while they were on the bus also, they had a kind of hints that it is going to be a bad day for them, right? So at the back of the bus, fast bowlers were loud in their complaints. Now there's a name, Tilan Tushara's joke, particularly a vocal person, and he has mentioned something as a joke, because we understand that match had been a tedious or a very painful thing for them, and of course they didn't want to pay the match, but of course come back to Sri Lanka and enjoy time, we'll say, right? He wished a bomb would go off so we could all leave Lahore and go back home. That was his idea, right? So we understand that they have felt it, something miserable is going to happen, or they were not very much happy about all these days they spent in Pakistan, it seems, right? So this particular line, he wished a bomb would go off so we could all leave Lahore and go back home. So home, again, we like to be at home. Why? There they refer to the motherland as well as home, both, and that home is a place where you can be very relaxed and enjoy life with loved ones and the warmth of love, attention, and all sorts of enjoyment. So it suggests us that they were waiting to experience that rather than playing that match there. So that match had not been a pleasant or a pleasurable one for them. That is why this type of idea has come out from that particularly vocal person, Tilan Tushar, right? So when it comes to literary devices, we take this as a kind of foreshadowing. What is foreshadowing? We are going to say something that's going to happen in future as we felt it prior to that or before that, right? Sometimes certain things may happen just after some people say certain things. Actually, they do not have any knowledge to all these things like telepathy, but anyway, they come out with these things, and to prove that what they said was true, certain things happen, right? So have you experienced something like that? Right. So we'll see what happened next. Soon after a few minutes, ironically, they heard what sounded like crackers going off. So you know this New Year season, just after the New Year season, you are going to learn this lesson, right? So then firecrackers are going off. So you can get the sound of it. So the writer, in his speech, Sangaka has brought out that effect with that, is it a simile or a metaphor? Like firecrackers going off. So he has used a kind of simile to bring out that sound effect and to show that how terrible it was and how frightening it was, right? So get down, they are shooting at the bus. So that was a command, right? So get down, they are shooting at the bus. They got panicked, they were frightened, and somebody who was in front shouted that, right? Then after that, what was the reaction? So think of it. If you had heard something like that suddenly when you were traveling somewhere, what type of feelings are there in your mind? It comes to you, and how would you react, right? So what did they do? Everyone dived for cover, right? So I have shown you a picture where there are seats and what they refer to as easel, right? So that in between the two rows of seats, you have a space. So that is known as easel, and everybody found shelter there. So they could lie on the floor on the bus and cover themselves behind the seats, right? So is it clear how they found a kind of safety measure to save their lives? Can you imagine how terrible it might have been for them? suddenly to react like that and find a kind of security, right? Safety. Next, with very little space, we were all lying on top of each other, right? So that's very natural when something like that, in a panic like that, you can't remember where you are and you're just trying to save your life, right? So you fall on each other's body. There's nothing like, any other option for them, right? So that's what they have done. Now, up to now, did you feel how they felt or how they reacted to save their lives in a terror like that? So don't you think that this incident have made them think, or they have felt how much these people in Sri Lanka have suffered all throughout the time, those who are living in war-torn areas especially, right? So their struggle, they could understand. And can you remember, little while ago in a few slides back, I told you that you can't tell something when you don't experience exactly how it was like. But now they can tell it to others because they experienced it firsthand, the word that I was paying attention to when I started the lesson, right? So with very little space, we were all lying on top of each other. Situation has made them react like that. So again, something like that, not of course finding a kind of shelter in that story. The Wave by Sonali Dharaniyagala, again you find a situation like this, a panic situation where they are going to run for their lives. Here they couldn't run anywhere. What they could do was to stay the bus and then after that find kind of shelter behind the seats or lie on the AC, right? I think this is enough for you to understand how they tried to save their lives, right? Then how would you react if you were to face such a situation is my question. How would you react if you were to face such a situation? Get panic, scream, accuse somebody, especially Tilan, because he told that. I think if a bomb would go off and we could get back home, the same thing happened. It was not a bomb, of course, at first. It was gunfire. Later on, it was grenades. Then, if you were there, are you going to start to blame him or accuse him? You are the person who asked for this. You told this to happen and all that. Sometimes you may come up with, isn't it? Right. So it is not anyway a pleasant situation or a very enjoyable period or enjoyable time for them. They were really upset, right? Try to save yourself first and not bothered about the others. I mean, if you were there, a selfish attitude, but what you would do? Are you going to run and hide first without thinking of anybody else, right? The next question, right? So that is something I want you to give an answer. Does any of those reactions tell that you are wise or intelligent, selfless, thoughtful, united, or having team-spirited? Think that you were all going on to play a cricket match with another school, right? So then suddenly you had to face something like that. If you reacted in the way that I told, get panic, scream, accuse somebody else, and try to save yourself first without thinking of anybody else, are you a wise person or an intelligent person, right? Because you are going to scream and all that. And again, because you are going to run for your life first or try to save your life first, are you going to be a selfless person? So are you a thoughtful person, or have you got the idea of being united or a kind of team spirit which is very important for the victory as a team, right? So you have to share your feelings, emotions, and you have to show concern about other people. All these things should be there, right? So you have to be wise, intelligent, thoughtful, selfless, united, and a kind of team spirit. So I think with the reactions of the captain of the Sri Lanka team, he showed all these qualities through his behavior, right? So we'll see what he did. It was like a rain on a tin roof. Again, he brings out another sound effect. So when it rains, when the raindrops falls onto a tin roof, where the roof is made of sheets, made of tin, you get the sound very harder. If you have a roof with tiles, of course, roof tiles or some kind of asbestos sheets, that sound is not very much effective, right? So, when it falls onto a tin sheet on the roof, the sound is very hard and very much strong. So, such a sound was coming out. So, that again hints us it was endless, right? So, when the rain pours down, it doesn't stop at once, right? It makes a big noise. And then it was like a rain on a tin roof. So, he brings out the real terror and the effect of it. The bus was at a standstill. Now think of that. Very purposeful, selfish action. What was it? But the bus was not moving when this attack took place, right? So, the driver had stopped the bus. So, when there's something like that, when the bus is not moving, what happens? The gunmen can find their target. So, this bus had stopped at that point for their gunmen to shoot these people, our Sri Lankan team, right? So, what type of a feeling comes to your mind or your body, right? So, actually, we feel it is very unfair. They have done it purposely, right? To hurt our people and to injure our people, to make them wounded, right? So, then target for the gunmen was very easy because the driver was not moving the bus. It is a very emotional situation, right? And did any one of our team members shout at the driver to move the bus, or whether they were scolding the driver? No, because they were in a land, it was away from their motherland, and we can't say that is an unknown land, but a land that doesn't belong to us, right? So, our lives are in danger and of course having a kind of threat, because all these people are the natives or the people from that country, right? So, we have to be very careful. So, through the actions or the behavior of our team, especially the captain, it is suggested that they were very wise. Though it was a situation where we feel very angry, they did not show their anger, right? So, they handled it very tactfully. All we could do was stay still and quiet. So, without making a noise, they were staying still. What is the purpose of it? Then the gunmen can't trace or find their target, because when you are shouting and making a big panic or a noise, it is very much easy for them to attack and take their target, right? So, as long as you are going to be very quiet and still, so if you are not moving everywhere, so it is very easy for you to save your life. So, keep this as a lesson you learn for your life. So, by accident even in future, if you have to face something like that, if you will have to face something like this, to react in a very natural way, it is not a natural way, but anyway, panic situation where you are going to act or react very intelligently, right? So, very wisely, without making any noise, without moving, stay where you are. That is the best thing to do when there is a kind of attack like this, right? So, at the same time, they were hoping and praying to avoid death or injury. That is the most important thing. None of them wanted to have any kind of injury or death caused to any of the team members. So, I raise another question for you all. What did the captain of the team do? Right. So, that is very important to show his leadership qualities, right? Up to now, did you understand how our team reacted in a way that shows their maturity, their discipline and everything, right? So, in a panic situation, why is it important? I mean, the reaction or the way that our team leader or the captain of the team did, right? He heard the others saying they were injured and hurt. So, just like father hears this at home, he heard the others saying they were injured and hurt. He is the responsible person for the team. And when he hears all these painful words, we'll say, right? So how did he react? Mahela says he has been hit in the shin below his knee, and then Tilan says hit the back of his thigh. So you know that all these people had got injured their legs, right? Then Taranga Paranavitana, of course, hit on his chest. The bullets had attacked his chest. That means a kind of a serious injury, because he should be treated very quickly, not like the two other cricketers who injured their legs, right? So blood-soaked chest, again a visual imagery. We get that picture in our mind, right? And then how the bullet had made a hole in his chest and blood coming out, blood-soaked chest, right? And another special thing is there, Taranga Paranavitana was having his debut tour. That means his maiden tour, the foreign trip, right? So Sangaka was thinking of his fellow player or the fellow cricketer. As I turn my head to look at him, I feel something whiz past my ear and a bullet thudded into the side of the seat. Now, get that picture of the bus into your mind and think of where Mahela might have sat. And just because he was turning his head to look at somebody else, he could avoid the bullet that just went past his ear, right? So, and knock on the seat where he was hiding behind, right? So then he had been a few seconds earlier, right? So then the seat where they are, his position, he was, if he was not moving his head, definitely that bullet would have caused a kind of injury to his head. As a leader, he showed him to be a good and sensible leader. So that's what I was telling you. He is a thoughtful person. I gave you the example, just like the father hears the children complaining or giving a kind of painful words in a misery or in an unhappy situation. Kumar Sangakkara also had to listen to all these things because he was the leader or the captain, right? He was thoughtful. Oh my God, you were out first ball, run out next innings, and now you have been shot. Whom he is thinking of? I told you, first trip or the maiden tour of the cricketer, and then he was thinking of that person. How clear your thinking is, right? So he is very much appreciative of the other members' thoughtfulness, right? He is selfless. So how can we say that he is selfless? Because he did not see for the safety of himself. He says, I did not see my life flash by. But he was thinking of others in the team. Team spirited, and he is united. He is thoughtful about other players, and it was a team for him, not any isolated individuals. Remember, children, when we are in school, we are the members of that school. So we have to protect the name of the school. We have to keep the respect and regard of the school. And even in the classroom, though we learn in separate classrooms just for easy handling of the subjects and everything, we all are the children of the same grade, right? You all become the children of the same grade. So that team spirit or that feeling of unity among us is very important. And there is a saying, united we stand, divided we fall. So here they showed they all were united, and through that unity they could all be happy in a way, because they tell us how they reacted just after this, right? So we will go on with other slides and see how they are going to prove this. Then empathy. Empathy means you are going to think of another person as if you are there, right? No, when Kumar Sangakkara was looking at others, he felt that if he was that person, how would he feel? that is how he reacted, right? So that is why he was more thoughtful about that cricketer who was on his debut tour, right? Then he was showing sympathy. He was worried about team members. At the same time, he was worried about countrymen in war-torn areas. He comes up with these ideas, and when you read the text, you may find the words, how he is going to talk about that. I have mentioned about those things in my next slides, right? Then, did you understand that we can say that Kumar Sangakkara is a selfless person, and when you are talking about his qualities, remember, you take examples from the text and the words from the text and show that this line shows that he is selfless, right? So then some other examples drawn from the text, right? Team-spirited and united, he has empathy, he has sympathy, he is very responsible, right? So think about the team and the country. Now, how many of you have read this? And if you have read, you can understand what I say about this. Think about the team and the country, right? So he was thinking about the country. Together as a team, they were all concerned about the reputation of the country, right? Remember that word, reputation of the country. Equality. He was equally paying his attention to the seniors as well as juniors in the team, right? So that is why he was listening to Mahela as well as his same age cricketer like. So and then after that, then the one who is going on his debut tour is not having such an experience, and he is a junior, of course. But Kumar Sangakkara was treating everybody alike, and he shows the quality of equality, right? So he has humanity all throughout his behavior. His overall behavior is a manifestation or a kind of showcase of his kindness, love, consideration, caring for others, responsibility as the leader, right? So he showed humanity. I hope you understood what I meant by that, his overall behavior, right? So he showed kindness, love, consideration, caring for others, responsibility as the leader, right? Then united, and they had patriotism, right? So work as a team. And thereafter we can see a very important line in the text. Our emotions held true to our role as unofficial ambassadors. So ambassador is the person who corresponds or who is going to talk about the things of that country, the motherland, right? So Sri Lankan ambassador in Japan is going to see to the matters of our country, of the people who are living in Japan, right? So then, they all felt that. The true feeling was, true emotion was that we are unofficial ambassadors. We were not appointed as, but our reactions, the way we behave, the way we speak, and the way we are going to comment about this incident will show the attitudes of the Sri Lankans, how they are going to show their feelings and emotions in a panic situation like this. So he was having this patriotism, and he wanted to protect the reputation of the motherland. And throughout this speech up to now, did you hear him talking about any grudge or any angry expressions or kind of hatred to anybody, even to the terrorists, those who attack them, or the responsible persons in the authorities, because the governments are responsible, and you know that they were informed not to wait for the bus, and the driver purposely stopped the bus for the gunmen to attack them. So all these things, when we consider, we understand that their reaction was very silent and a very calm and quiet one, right? So their emotions held true to their role, their work role as an unofficial ambassadors. Remember that, children, that line is very much important when you are going to talk about their patriotism and their reaction to safeguard or to protect the reputation of our motherland, right? Then they are strong and brave. So how can they be strong and brave? Of course, to play a match for a long time, they should be physically fit enough, right? So they are strong. But here we talk about their mental strength, right? And then their bravery. So without getting panic, they all face that situation in a very pleasant way, right? So without creating any problem to anyone, right? We were not down and out. Again, very important quote or a very important line. We were not down and out. We are Sri Lankans. So they talk about the Sri Lankan identity. So they knew that they are the representatives of Sri Lanka, and they are going to show that Sri Lankans are very brave, right? So that is why we are called lions. Lion image to show that bravery. So they were talking about that, right? Strong and brave. We were not down and out. We are Sri Lankan. Although we were physically injured, that's true. We heard a list of names, those who got injured, and one of course got the bullet in his chest. Still, see what he is going to say. Although we were physically injured, mentally we held strong. That's what I was telling right at the beginning. We are talking about their mental strength. We know that physically they are strong. There's no secret in that, right? So at the same time, their bravery. Then tolerance and patience. Not criticized. Talk ill of anybody. This is a point that I discussed with you earlier. And they were not talking about talking ill of, and they were, of course, Kumar Sangakkara in his speech, and none of them in their behavior all throughout this time. They could have criticized the authorities responsible, but we didn't hear throughout his speech he was doing such. At the same time, though they saw that inhuman, purposeful stopping of the bus for the gunmen to attack them, they were not talking about anything against these terrorist groups, those who attacked them, right? So therefore, we understand that in his speech, he was not breeding hatred or violence. If they talk about these things over and over again, and if he was giving such an idea to the audience or the people who were listening, they understand that it is a point that we can talk and we can go on and on to bring some more violence and terror to the country, but they are not going to sort out the problem, right? So they were very wise enough, and they had a great tolerance and patience to bear up all these injustice and not to talk any of these things and to be silent. It is a very good reaction, right? We were shot at. Grenades were thrown at us. We were injured and yet were not cowed. He says that even if they did all these things to hurt us, they could not bully us. So it is something to say that they have a very strong, high spirit in their mind, right? So they are a set of people nobody can easily bully. They were not harassed in any other way other than attacking like this. But they were not mentally down. They were very strong, right? Remember that. I hope that these qualities of Kumar Sangakkara we are talking about in his speech. These things are there in his speech, and so that is why his speech becomes so important, right? Let's see. He is humble. Again, self-analysis just after the comments of the soldier at the checkpoint, just after a few weeks, when he was in Colombo, at a checkpoint, he meets a soldier. This becomes again another important event in his life, another situation in his life, just like that terrorist attack, because that incident made him think of his self and about his self-importance to the country and its people as a cricketer, right? So you remember the point? How can this man value his life less than mine? That was a question that came to Kumar Sangakkara's mind, right? How can this man value his life less than mine? His sincerity was overwhelming. Whose sincerity? The soldier's sincerity, the love and affection towards this great hero, right? He feels these soldiers, of course we call them our saviors and they are heroes, but that heroic soldier is telling that Kumar Sangakkara is a hero. So we have to think of it as well, why that such a person is calling Kumar Sangakkara a hero, right? So we will go on and see and we will comment on that, right? So then after that, what does he say? How can this man value his life less than mine? His sincerity was overwhelming. I felt humbled. So I gave you the quality humble, down to earth. He was not very proud of himself. He was not thinking high of himself, right? But he was thinking, oh, all the people in the country, especially a hero is telling me a hero, right? So something is there. So I have to think of myself, how important I am to the country, because I have not put what that soldier said on this slide, but I am going to talk about that, right? So politely inquired about my health after the attack. So who asked this question? The soldier raised this question to Kumar Sangakkara, politely inquired about my health after the attack, right? So they knew that Lahore attack was popular incident and everybody in Sri Lanka knew. So the soldier also inquired about it, about the health of Kumar Sangakkara, not anything else, right? Fine. Then I have shown you the picture to show that how much they do for the protection of the country, but this is Kumar Sangakkara met this soldier at a checkpoint in Colombo, not in a war-torn area, remember that as well. But this incident is very important, meeting of this soldier and the conversation or the dialogue they had is important. That is why I included this picture to highlight that meeting of that soldier at the checkpoint was a very good point, or very good meeting point, we will say, for Kumar Sangakkara to evaluate his own life, the importance of it, right? We will see what's there. Then after that, when that soldier inquired about Kumar Sangakkara's health, he said this, told that what they experience every day, we experience only for a few minutes. That is how Kumar Sangakkara expressed his idea. So you all are as soldiers and as armed forces experience the violence we experience for few minutes. So your dedication, your sacrifice is more than that, because it is there for daily work of these people. But of course we had only for few minutes. So then what ideas are inferred by this statement told that what they experience every day, we experience only for few minutes. So he was admiring or appreciating the bravery of and sacrifice of these soldiers. I mean, that soldier was representing the whole lot of armed forces people, and then Kumar Sangakkara was expressing his admiration and appreciation. That is what we can infer from the sentence, what you experience every day, we had only for few minutes. Then again, he is valuing another life whose service is very much important, right? You know that even recent incidents that I am not going to talk about, but you might have experienced, we understood the service and value of these essential services, right? So then even in this corona and everything, their contribution to the country is very high. So Kumar Sangakkara did not forget to and value that service. And he was telling this as a kind of encouragement, we can say that. And again he was showing equality and humanity, because soldier was telling Kumar Sangakkara was hero, and again in reciprocation to say it back, he was also telling something like that. So he was showing equality as well as humanity, right? So children, I just took one line in that. So what was it? What they experience every day, we experience only for few minutes. That's what he said. But as students, what you do in literature is take these words and try to get at the depth of its meaning. So, involve your knowledge, your experience about such situations and try to give some other ideas to what these words express. That is what we do in literature. We are not merely reading the lines, because in these literary texts, the writers are using some words symbolically, because when we do poems, when we do other literary texts, we discuss these things, right? So, then what you have got to do in literature is to put your knowledge, what you already know, into these events and incidents, and give some other ideas to elaborate or to talk more on that. So, that is how you practice all these writing answers as well, because just merely reading the lines won't do for us as students of literature, right? And as teachers of literature, what we do is to show you the way how you are going to get at the depth of the meaning, right? Explicit meaning and implicit meaning, we are talking about that, and when I was introducing you the literary devices, I very clearly explained you how to take these two, right? Okay, fine. Then the soldier looked me in the eye. I am doing something like that here with these lines as well. The soldier looked me in the eye. So, you can understand that, right? So, soldier was speaking to Kumar Sangakkar looking at his eye. So, when you are talking to your friends, if you look at the person's eye, so what does it tell? What are you going to express? You are going to show your honesty, your straightforwardness, and you are going to be direct, and your love or care for that person. So, if somebody speaks looking away, shows that that person is not very much interested in talking to you, and what he is going to say will not be very much important for you as well, because it is something told looking away, right? So, eye contact, that is it, right? The soldier looked me in the eye, that is to show that eye contact. That is very important. So, these are the ideas we can get with that single line. So, learn that. So, I want you to look at each and every line, because economy of language, and every word, every line in a short story or a prose, even in a poem, is very important to get the meaning, the deepest meaning or the depth of it, right? It is okay if I die, because it is my job and I am ready for it. But you are a hero, and if you were to die, it would be a great loss for our country. So, this is a line. That is why I told you that meeting with the soldier was a very turning point in his life, like to evaluate his importance, right? So, if we were to die, it would be a great loss for our country. So, let us see the meaning of it. What type of message is conveyed by the soldier? Their readiness to die and dedication to work, because they were well trained soldiers, and if he dies, to make up for his loss, there will be many other well trained soldiers, right, doing an equal service. But with that idea, the soldier wanted to hint or wanted to say that if something happened to Kumar Sangakkar's life, there won't be an equal for him very quickly, right? That shows that he is a very experienced, matured person in the field as a cricketer. At the same time, soldiers' love for cricket, right? So, we understand that he is a fan or a cricket fan of a Sangakkar. That does not mean that the fan that works and gives you a wind, right? Remember that when you are fond of artists, when you are fond of players, we call you are a fan of the singer or fan of the cricketer, something like that, right? Then, as a team, how did they set an example? Again, now in his speech, he was talking about how everybody reacted as a team. So, tolerance and endurance. So, there was a mixture of emotions at the dressing room where the injured ones were treated. So, what were those emotions? Anger. No doubt there should be that, isn't it? It was something about injustice. At the same time, relief. Why? They could find a kind of treatment and some kind of medicine for their injured players. At the same time, joy. Why? Everybody is safe, nobody died. So, mixture of emotions, anger, relief, joy. Players and coaching staff is being examined by paramedics. That was something that brings them a great relief, right? they are going to get that medical assistance. And then after that, unity and cooperation. Tilan is helped off the bus. Again, as a team, they were helping Tilan to get down the bus. Then notable how quickly we got over that attack on us, right? Then he says very quickly we could get out of that emotion of being attacked, and that is because of their training, because of their discipline, and because of their maturity. You understand that because it's a well experienced team, though there are some amateur or new hands in the team, most of them were matured, and following them, all the other people also could do something better, right? And their spirit, concern and attention for each other, and strong mental and physical health they had, right? Especially mental health. Can you remember? We were attacked, we were injured, but of course we were not cowed. We are Sri Lankans, so they had that strength. Ajantha Mendes, his head swathed in bandages after multiple shrapnel wounds, after these parts of the bomb that were in his body removed. Right? Then he had got that bandages all around his head, but he was requesting to have a card game. It shows their spirit and how they are going to quickly get over from one emotion to another, because they are very matured and well-trained cricketers with a very good discipline. So they are not going to weep and endure. Very good example for us as well. Some of us, of course, very much sad and very much worried on certain things, and they can't easily get out of it and come back to normal. But these people were not so. They could get back to their ordinary way of life or come back to normal very easily, right? It is because of that training. Right, after Tilan was back gaining full consciousness, making jokes at him to cheer him up, again to show their spirit. Patriotism and love for the country, I talk about this. Everybody thinking them as unofficial ambassadors. Not only Kumar Sangakkara, the rest of the team had that feeling. We are unofficial ambassadors representing Sri Lanka in the world, right? So they are, I told you about this, their reaction, their way of talking, everything contributes to the reputation of the country, right? Then themes in the story, leadership qualities. I was talking about all these things, qualities of Kumar Sangakkara as a captain, right? Then patriotism they had, that's what I was talking about a little while ago. Then humanity, all over his behavior throughout this period, how he was showing humanity, not only to his team members, the Sri Lankans, as well as even to the soldier. Value of service. As a cricketer, Kumar Sangakkara, what he does for the team and what he does for the country in his service as a bringing a form of entertainment, right? Entertainer. At the same time, soldier who was doing equal service in a different field with much sacrifice, because that sacrifice is also there in both Kumar Sangakkara and the soldier, but in two different ways, right? So you understand all these things, and then I have focused your attention on two questions, and there's nothing much to say about this, but all what I discuss with you are enough for you to answer these two questions. I will just read the questions. What features of Kumar Sangakkara's character are brought out in the Lahore attack? So I talk about enough of features of his character, right? As a humble person, I think you all can remember this, and I have written certain words in my answer. And the second one is portrayal of maturity. Self-discipline made Kumar Sangakkara to be a great hero in the hearts of Sri Lankans. Comment. So I showed you how matured they were, and especially this captain, right? So, and their self-discipline, how they kept quiet, how they were silent, and how they wanted to impress the world that Sri Lankans are not violent. They are not breeding hatred or anger, right? So then I have just written an answer. I'll just read it for you all to catch up certain things. The Lahore attack best explains the characteristics of Sangakkara. We find him as a responsible, matured, well-experienced team leader. He is human and considerate of his team, and best of all, shows his love and patriotism to the motherland. So children, when you start writing an answer for an essay type question, please pay your attention to the given points and on which you must elaborate on, and on which you must have to have a kind of mind map or some words that you are going to include, some quotations that you can remember to prove what you are going to argue. So include all these things and have a rough sheet and a rough note, and then go on writing like this and use the best vocabulary and free of grammar errors, then you are sure to score some better marks, right. So I think I discussed enough, and by now you might have got a very clear understanding of this prose Lahore attack, Colin Cowdrey's speech, and then Kumar Sangakkara's character as the captain, and what type of lessons are there for us to learn, for you of course as students and for adults, to help the next generation, right. So I'm going to wind up my lesson at this for the day, and I'm going to meet you again with another lesson like this. Till that time, stay safe, and I'm going to say goodbye.